Oh, that's me. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And yeah, as we are welcoming everyone to the land of, well, the sleeping gods, Kalamina is in the background there, as you said, Christine. It's where we have two sites within this island of Trowena, where Aboriginal people would go to perform ceremony at significant times in their lives. And the two places were Kananyi, where I live, at Nika, and the other was over on the East Coast. Both these places were considered to be fire mountain. And this is where life was reaffirmed, and through us coming together in and performing cultural practice. So we honour our ancestors and our elders here with us now, and work with our young ones to pass on what we have gained from our ancestors. And yeah, thank you. You can see there in the background the beautiful mists that are enveloping the mountain as I came down today. I've brought Luina Muna, the blue gum, here, and it is part of our cleansing our hands and doing ceremony. Normally I would be
Kris, we can't hear you now. Yeah.
Thank you. That's the just the beginning, but we are welcoming you to this beautiful International Women's Day here on country.
Thank you so much, Kris. It's really lovely to have you here. Really lovely, and such a beautiful, warm welcome for us all. So the other dimension of our hosts this evening are the Brahma Kumaris, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about us. So the Brahma Kumaris are a women-led organisation that comprises a worldwide network of centres or associated network in more than 110 countries. So teaches Raja Yoga meditation, positive living and empowerment. So our umbrella organisation, the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual Organisation, is an international non-government organisation affiliated with the United Nations. So we're accredited with a number of status, including general consultative status with the Economic and Social Council, and observer to the United Nations Environment General Assembly. So prior to 2009, we'd attended a number of climate change conferences, such as the Earth Summit in 1992 in Rio. And in 2009, the Brahma Kumaris Environment Initiative was established. And we've attended, hosted and collaborated in many more environmental events around the world, including all the COP conferences where a team goes to help with that and does various works and networking. So the last one of those was in Glasgow. So the aim of our environment initiative is to awaken a greater environmental awareness within our own organisation and to collaborate and learn from others through dialogue, partnerships, UN conferences and local initiatives. United Nations International Women's Day is one of the observances that we've combined together this year because UN Women are using the theme Changing Climates, Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. And so we're going to hear from a panel of women about the very interesting, fascinating ways they're active for sustainability, and all very different. So I really like to welcome all our speakers and look forward to hearing from you today. They'll share about their work, their experiences, challenges, and their personal inspiration. So if we have time at the end, we will have a chance to hear more about our speakers via questions. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the chat box as we go along, and we'll get to those later if we can. We'll also end with a lovely guided meditation commentary to share that peace and beautiful vibration with the world and all women and men by Sister Christine Westbury from Melbourne. So I'd like to go to our first speaker in a little bit more depth, which is again Kris Schaffer. So Kris is an Indigenous horticulturalist, bush food expert, educator, consultant, and artist with a lifetime experience of being creatively embedded in nature. So she's sharing that knowledge, as she said, especially with younger generation, teaching how to grow edible native plants. And I also noticed with interest that Kris established Tasmania's first nursery of Indigenous Tasmanian plants. So Kris, over to you now, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
Yes, thank you. This is actually one of my first Zoom meetings like this. I'm a little bit nervous, so yeah, it sounds pretty impressive, but it's the joy of actually being out there on country, being in the bush. It's been my life to travel on this mountain that you can see at the back of me. I grew up at a place called Fern Tree, which is La Poigne in Palawa language. And it was where I could escape and be one with nature. And I hadn't realised until I was much older that that's where my learning started. It's very fortunate to have my mother and father who loved the island and who explored all the little nooks and crannies, all the little back roads. So this is, can you still hear me? Yeah, oh, good. Oh, you've got some pictures coming up to be my guide. This is a garden. I built my own house out of timbers actually on my property. And yeah, I then had set up my business in growing native plants, Indigenous plants, to regenerate about 4 acres of the property that had been really degraded. And so the quest of actually going out and finding seed and propagation material is what set me on the path of working with children in particular, but children and community groups, through understanding the ecology, the deep ecology that I'd had the privilege of having my father take me out bush, hunting and fishing, tracking. And what you see here now is the Brahma Kumaris and Religions for Peace. We started our Walking Humbly, healing the land, healing the people. And because I'd been working on country, so all over, I'd spent time in the Tarkine in the mid-70s. I could actually sort of be a guide to those that came on country to do our different forms of meditation, prayer, and yeah, just being in nature. This is the work, this is in my house that I built, and this is some of the work that I'm doing, which is part of an extension of Growing Respect Gardens that you mentioned before. It's bush foods for children, how to grow and cook bush foods. And we're very fortunate to have a sustainable learning centre up on another one of the foothills of the mountain. And this is where we work with children to do bio blitzes, and it's really quite innovative. Scientists and educators are brought in to work with these amazing schools where relationships are being built up. And we do all the stuff that I used to do as a child and continue to do in entomology, and but a lot of this is through drawing. So one of those of my panels that I'm working on at the moment is the different clans, the 49 clans of people, Aboriginal people of the island of Trowena that were documented at the time of invasion. We are now gathering together through the different schools, the song lines. So through dance and through putting in bush food gardens, exploring local patches where there's remnant native plants. And yeah, I'm doing that through a guided meditation. My art is all that comes really just basically from me intuitively working on country. I've brought a few plants from my garden, because you've all got to have a botany lesson if we're going to be talking about being connected with country. And if I was there with you, I would be handing you this as a token of true welcome to country. I've got also the medicinal plants we're putting in gardens for Aboriginal community. On the food is medicine and medicine is food, and the linking of these beautiful medicinal plants and bringing together that knowledge that has been documented. One of the plants, the other plants, is a one that we took to the Tarkine where that photo was taken, and these were used for pain. So it's documented that our ancestors would make a garland of this plant and it would alleviate headache or toothache. The very last thing I wanted to say was thinking of our brothers and sisters and all of those around the world, and for those in Ukraine, their national flower. And it's with their love and acceptance that we ensure that we can keep our land pure and clean so that we can have safe sanctuary for all those that need to find a new home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kris. That was very beautiful, very touching. And it's lovely that you share about growing respect gardens and the many things you've done. The artwork is lovely, and no doubt there are many, many lessons we can learn from there. That sunflower is absolutely gorgeous. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd now like to move on to our next speaker, who is Rosemary Morrow, who's an agricultural scientist, an international permaculture teacher and writer. She's worked in many countries where needs are often desperate. So she has dedicated her efforts to refugees in war-torn countries and communities seriously affected by climate change. So she's a Quaker and a peace activist. So Ro, a very warm welcome to our program today, and over to you now.
Thank you so much, Christine. Kris, that was so moving. I feel as if we've got a conversation about the deep healing and about rebuilding relationships with the land in all its forms. And I was very moved. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was just lovely. I'm trying to learn some local Gundungurra language so it can be heard on land. And one of our elders has given me permission. So Yangu Border, Mandu, Yadanji, which is for coming here today. I thank you. Just trying to be part of hearing the languages. I'd like to tell you a story. I was in Bangladesh when I was working with refugees, and I said to people, well, you know, one of the things we do in permaculture is design back forests that are useful and have many products. So would everyone like to get into groups, please, and write down all the trees they know and all the products? They came up with about 300 products and 80 trees. And I thought, now, if I put a group of Australians into our beautiful blue gum forest here in the mountains and said, tell me all the uses, they wouldn't know because they're not intimate with the plants and the animals to be able to say. And your knowledge there, Kris, reminded me of that story. You have to know the names and the places and how everything is connected. I've got a long way to go. I'd like to tell you a couple of stories. I was in a small mountainous country, possibly just the size of Luritja in same latitude in Africa, a small country called Lesotho. And I was supposed to be teaching people agriculture. And I'm feeling more and more unhappy about how good agriculture would be for anyone in this environment. It's all cattle and no fences. And one day I walked past the local market, not the shop where you went and bought things from South Africa, the market. And as I did, there were a group of women sitting there, and they had 5 oranges, 5 tomatoes, a few potatoes, and some onions. And I thought, what's this? And they were selling them. And I realised that they were selling the food they should be eating. And that what I was bringing to them was something like a commodity product for South Africa. So I was aware then that women were impoverished, the men were working in the mines of South Africa on pittance wages, and the women were trying to feed the people. And the forests had long since gone. And years later, I was in Vietnam, and I said to the local NGO, right, we want 50% of women on the course. This is about sustainability in women, and I hope the links will come together. We need 50% of women on the course. They said, the women's don't want to come. And I said, perhaps the women's do want to come. No, the women's don't want to come. I said, well, we have to ask the women's. I can learn and tell the women's. We can go home and tell the women's. I said, no, we need the women's in the class. And I said, anyway, look, the Australian government wants real equality. Looking at our government now, that's a bit ironic. I'm not sure much has happened, but, you know, I said, Australian government says we really can't fund these courses. They said, I'll find the women's. So we had 50% of women in the course. And then we go around and say, tell me about growing food or your livelihood. And the men would say, I can speak for the women's. And I would say, I would like to hear the woman's own voice. I want to hear exactly what she's saying in her voice, not in your voice. Oh, perhaps the women's don't know. I said, well, let's hear. So it was always this stress to get women voices and to get women seen and to be in these courses. Another time I was working for the Department of Women's Affairs and they spoke very quietly. And so we had shouting lessons, again, getting women heard. And I'd say things like, it's raining. And they'd say, no, not raining. I'd say, it's raining. They'd say, no, not raining. It's raining. They'd say, it is raining. And then we were all happy. What we were doing was raising the visibility of women and listening to women and insisting men listen to women. And it was difficult. And it still is difficult. And so what I've seen in my work, whether it's refugee camps or countries that were occupied, such as Cambodia, such as Afghanistan or Kashmir, is that climate change and global warming affects women more than it affects men. It affects women extremely negatively. And of course, we call this climate justice because they are the ones who are dealing with the food, dealing with the children, dealing with nutrition. And quite frankly, they're doing 3/4 of the work. The men are often sort of finding important things to do in having a drink or talk to a friend. And that is true. And I'm not a separation feminist, just in case you thought it. I have many wonderful men. It's just a fact of life that this imbalance has been accepted, and it's been very serious for men. The fact that women in Afghanistan were not allowed to garden much was very hard for them because the men wanted to grow cash crops and the women understood the need for food. The fact that global warming was happening in Afghanistan and people were overusing groundwater meant there wasn't enough water even for households. And I'm sure it's worse now. I think the country with snow melt. So it was always the melting snows that enabled the crops to be grown. And last year there was almost no melting snow, and so there was a drought. It's sort of like our floods now. It's 1 in 500-year events, but it's affecting women. So I guess I've become strongly a reactionary person to people who say that women have largely achieved equality. I'm really, really convinced that unless we have women in charge, and very often young women, we want young women, and we also want more women of colour. There's been too much well-meaning white, and I'm saying this from myself. I think when I started, I thought I had messages to give people and knowledge to impart. Now I'm not certain of that at all. When I talk to people like Sarah in the Philippines, who tells me how they organise themselves, it's so much better than the way we organise ourselves. It's not a pyramid hierarchy. It's actually circles, which I think is Indigenous in Australia, to meet in circles, greet in circles, talk in circles. How we can trust people with money, how we can trust people to write their own projects. I have had to turn a full circle, and I'm convinced that the sustainability and the trust needs to lie in the hands of women of colour, and that a lot of us need to butt out. On the other hand, and this is not an excuse, I have a toolbox, or perhaps I have a tree of wonderful fruits. I think that's nicer than a toolbox. Years ago, I found that permaculture was a wonderful way to look at restoring the earth. You could provide for the food, you could provide for forest rejuvenation, you had alternative economies, you had new ways of meeting, and that there was something valuable in that. And it was open to men and to women and to children, and to Brahma Kumaris and to Buddhists and to Christians and to Muslims. And everywhere I've taught, whether people were extremely poor or they even had income, considerable income, as the Portuguese would say, fat wallets, then permaculture worked for them. In the years that have passed, I haven't found anything else which restores, which enables us to pay back and enables us to put back. And I wonder whether our role is more to restore than it is anything else. So that every time we do take, we should be thinking what the children and the women and the others will get in the future. This has been not really a career path in the ordinary way of going through university. I've tended to follow, I don't really want to call it a calling. It's been a conviction that I was right, but I didn't want to think I was right if I was wrong. Is that a bit weird? I was convinced when I left Lesotho I had to find a better way and better knowledge. So that was in the 70s and I was about 30 years old. A better way of being, having something to offer, of being of service. And from the time I was 15, I wanted to offer service, but service for what? And then I wanted to be part of restoration. Restoration how? I found permaculture was the tree with the right fruits. My garden, 60% indigenous plants being put back. But I can't tell you how I followed the path. It was much more that intuitive, I can do no other. And I think it's been a huge help for me to be a Quaker and to be able to constantly hold up the testimonies of peace and community and integrity and environment. There's another one, it's the spices. And then permaculture showed me how it could be put into action. I think sitting in silence, I think looking for something greater than yourself rather than this is my answer from me. I think being able to follow something you really believe when sometimes it's against what everyone's telling you or you should be doing. Being prepared sometimes to hold out. I think these are the things that lead you to a more personal peace, but often into solitude and sometimes loneliness, which is, of course, some of the challenges of being alone with different groups and people when you want to talk about things. But I really think the wonders of somehow following a concern or leading happen when people pick it up and run with it. So that in the end, you are so glad that they have something, that in a deteriorating or degraded world, people can follow, people can do, people can learn, and most particularly women. And I'm so glad to be part of this today. And I hope I haven't gone on too long. I found it hard to watch my clock and also what's next. So Christine, sorry if I have.
No, thank you so much, Ro. Yes, no, that was really, really fascinating and great to hear about your story of giving women a voice, particularly, and as well as following your own inner voice in your journey with that conviction. So that was very lovely, and what great work you've done. So hopefully we'll hear more about that later, but thank you for sharing, Ro. And now we're going to hear from Dr. Sue Ennis. So Sue is the Secretary for Religions of Peace Australia. So Sue's a Quaker raised in a business family and learnt about ethical investments early in life. She's deeply concerned about climate issues and has been instrumental in forming a divestment group, which she'll tell us more about and share some slides with us as well. So Sue, very warm welcome and over to you.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you can see my slides.
That's perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much for speaking. And Kris, lovely to see you. And Ro, who's been a tremendous support for me. And it was a surprise to be asked to speak today on the sessions that we've started 2 years ago now on aligning your finances with your faith to protect the planet. So I'll just talk a little bit about this. So I see Carolyn's here. This program that we're doing is sort of an outgrowth of Green Faith, ARC, and the Living the Change initiative, with which Terry Sussmilch and Religions for Peace, we did several years of food, transport and energy and the Living the Peace program in Australia. And then in 2020, we formed the ARC divestment group. A few volunteers did that. So why is a teacher and a researcher interested in finance? Well, I think it was mentioned I came from a small business family. Like Kris, my father taught me, but he taught me about finances because his mother had little understanding of money. And in the Depression, as a single mother, they really didn't have enough to eat. They were hungry. So when I got a gift in 85, a financial gift, I thought, well, you can do good things with money. So, you know, no arms, no human rights issues, no smoking. So I tried to invest it in things that gave work and helped in society. Then I went to China and saw, wow, climate change is coming. And I decided I needed to start with myself. And then I met Ro, and it's been a long conversation with her over many years. And I got, probably in the 2000s, I really started to think about climate and finance more. So this is how we set up the group. In reality, there's about 3 of us who are doing this. Dr. Jamie Chom, he's a wonderful man. He perfects things I suggest and makes it, you know, he's a very great person to work with. So we spent a year looking at the area, discussing, reading, linking with partners like market forces and people in climate and finance people. Initially, we thought we'd have just information sessions. But what you find, what psychologists have found, you need support to change behaviours. So we planned banking and super sessions. We thought we'd start with that last year. And what I want to make clear is we don't give financial advice. We just help people look at various things. We use the Market Forces website. So if you look, these are the sorts of things we've run. We trialled banks. Terry was in the trial and we got great feedback. Then we've gone on superannuation. They're an hour-and-a-half sessions, but we'll see that later. Shares and AGMs. Then we did insurance, so you can see it grew, and ongoing support groups. In fact, there's one tonight, so I might have to leave a bit earlier. Year 3, we're doing all of the above and extensions on utility companies, and also we're trying to get Catholic organisations together on divestment in a webinar. So again, 1.5 hours, format gentle, explorative. We do introductions, multi-faith meditation slides, so some of it's quite quiet, faith sharing. Then we've made special videos of interviews of Market Forces and Responsible Investment Association of Australia. So we've interviewed them. And we look at the web and we look at how much is your bank involved in fossil fuels, oil, coal and gas, super, insurance. And then we do sharing of the information or the website, and you can do that if you wish, and then reflection and next steps, what you'd like to do. And then you can go to the next, another session if you wish. We used to have thought we'd have a series, but life doesn't work like that. So I'll just go on to the second last slide, is challenges. Major lack of understanding on climate and finance. People don't understand. We're all, like me, trying to drive my car less, eat more vegan food. Money is much more strategic. What you invest, who's your superannuation group, your bank, that is really the important stuff. Shifting that, people do not understand it. Also, people of faith, it pushes your buttons. It's not spiritual. For example, I heard of in a meeting, there were some people who said, oh no, we've put our money aside, we've organised it, we don't want to look at it, we don't want to become involved with it. By actually putting it aside, one could say, you're probably investing in fossil fuel companies in things you don't even know. You've got to look at it. So attendance varies. So we'd love more people. Last week we had 2. Ro helped me cope with it. And then today we had about 6. I ran one last night with my family and I had 7. Sometimes we have 30. So I'll put a link in at the bottom you may like to share with people. And there are only 2 to 4 of us doing this work. So we're quite a small group. So the last part is my spiritual supports. And I think I wouldn't have hung around in the area if I didn't have 2 respectful men of faith. Jamie's wonderful. And it's sort of, Quakers say it's a right order group. There's some right order in it. So Quaker support, Quaker worship. Worship is very important for me. My spiritual director, Ro, and Terry from Brahma Kumaris, Terry Sussmilch. Terry Sussmilch is a great support to me also. And I'm not saying that to be nice. So thank you for asking me to speak today. And I'll put the link to the events in the chat box. You have to go down to the event page and they're not all there because we're volunteers and we just do the best we can, but the next sessions are there.
Okay, thank you, Sue. That's really wonderful. Thank you for sharing about that really unique work, which is probably a bit cutting edge, really, but a movement from the ground up. And I loved the way that it was very informative and non-forceful, but helping people to understand and using very much the basis of a spiritual outlook and integrating your faith. So that came through very strongly, that feeling of integrity that you've shared with us there tonight. So thank you so much, Sue. And now we're going to hear from Vasundhara Kanpal. So she has spent more than 10 years in the field of environmental conservation and founded the organisation Green Karma that works to educate different sections of society. I can hear myself echoing there a little bit. And the actions required to save our planet and secure a safer environment for future generations. She has seen climate change firsthand while living in India and Bangladesh and has since engaged for climate justice and become very active. So Vasundhara, over to you now, and look forward to hearing from you about your work.
Om Shanti. So I would be sharing my screen. So I'm actually pretty new in Australia, but I have worked in Sri Lanka, I've worked in US, and now I'm here in Australia. And I have been inspired by so many people around the world, and I learned that you need to follow your dream. So I have always worked in non-profit sector, and now I'm like running my own non-profit organization, and we have named it Green Karma. So karma, probably everyone know here, karma is like your actions. So what our organization does is we educate and take actions and provide training. And this is the highlight of my talk today. This is our first project that is coming up in April. And this is a school holiday program called Wildlife Warriors. It is specially targeted for young minds, because over the many experience, I've learned that it is very easy to change the minds of young people rather than old people who or adults who are like kind of like set in their own way. So it's very easy to work with young people. So this is for school students, and it talks about how, so right now we always hear that our survival is threatened and our future generation will struggle to survive. But I think right now it's all other species are becoming extinct and really having hard time to survive. So this program is actually designed to connect young people, because we have all seen that the things we give to our kids when they are born, it's the toys, and they are like all animals. We take our kids to zoo and they are so excited. All of us is generally very we love animals, we love wildlife. But over the period, the society, the different systems of the society, they kind of like desensitize us. So, and Australia is actually leading country in species extinction. So we thought that it would be good, the compassion in children can be connected to species, to saving species in Australia. So that's why we came up with this idea. And what do we talk in this program? We generally bring the truth out. So just for example, we always, like when we think about saving environment or planet, we always talk about clean energy, but we forget that something, or we are generally not aware. So this is a very powerful fact that half of the country, half of the Australian land is actually under grazing, whereas only 0.02% of Australian land is under mining. So it's a very powerful fact, but nobody generally knows, because I think it's politics, and there's like lot of things. I won't undermine the energy system, but United Nations Environment Program, in its latest report, which was in 2019 Geo report, it clearly says the food system is the first system that need to be transformed. And it also says that it is about adopting healthier. So they have said that there are main three things that we can do to change the food system. First, they recommend is to give farmers incentive to reduce their greenhouse emissions. Second, they have recommended that we stop the loss and waste of food in the value chain. But on an individual level, the United Nations Environment Program has encouraged people to actually adopt healthier and more sustainable diets. And in many cases, it says that eating less meat. So why did I actually talk about this? Because more than half of the land is under grazing, and the grazing is for beef, mainly cattle, and which gives us milk and beef. So And United Nations has said that, we need to cut down on meat. And because it consumes so much of land, that is the main threat to the species extinction. And there's another, so we not only talk about becoming vegan or plant-based, it's also about a very holistic approach or a holistic living. For example, this is in Hobart. This parrot is the fastest parrot on this planet, and it actually live in mainland also, but particularly for breeding, it goes to Hobart. And the again, so the forest in Hobart are also, it's being logged, and the forests are logged not for grazing, but they are logged for wood chip, and wood chips are basically used for cardboard making and other paper and pulp. So it's like consumerism. With consumerism, everyone now is like on their laptop, sit and order things online, and everything comes in cardboard boxes. So we don't know what is actually harming. So these are the things. I'll give you another example. So kangaroos, almost like 50% of kangaroos are killed for shoes. And yeah, I'll not name the company, but yes. So the leading footwear companies are using our native wild animals. So these are the subjects that we want to bring awareness about and tell students, because nobody knows, even most of the adults don't knows about these small particular issues. And nobody harms wild animals, everyone loves them, but nobody knows what actually is harming. There are direct and indirect ways that we think that, oh, we are not being cruel, we don't harm or we don't do anything to wild animals, but actually indirectly we end up. So it's just joining the dots. So this is why we want to run these programs. So we generally we want to empower children. And when we see news like this, that that this young fellow actually helped while I mean the baby kangaroo, so this actually gives us motivation that we need to connect more, we need to talk about different issues which are not seen, which are not known, which are not very easily known to people. We want to bring those subjects to children and then also give them solutions. So this is all about our program. And yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vasundhara. I can really feel your enthusiasm and your passion there for sharing that information, particularly with young people. And very best wishes for the Wildlife Warrior program that's coming up in April for you. And great information on looking at the value of food systems and questioning what's harming and not harming. So that was very good. So we're hearing a very rich sharing from different speakers this evening. And our last speaker tonight is Ms. Caroline Bader, who's the co-director of Living the Change, the coordinator of Green Faith in Germany, and the Green Faith International Network. So I'd like to invite Caroline to share with us, and she's actually joining us live from Germany. So we're very fortunate to have her with us. So Caroline, over to you now.
Yeah, good evening. And I should say good morning from Germany. I'm calling in from a country, from a place that is less than 1,000 kilometers away from the war zone. So I just want to send greetings and a special prayer of peace. I think it's day 14 or day 12 of this cruel war. And there are brave men, but also brave women out there. And since today is International Women's Day, I want to uplift their courage, their passion, their loving care for their children, for their elders. Yeah, and just want to ask you to send a prayer. We are expecting the first refugees to arrive this week here in our small town where I live. And it's just it's a crazy time where we need to show and be in solidarity and show a loving heart. So I think this International Women's Day and this group of wonderful women here that are so inspiring is a great occasion to be together in this solidarity. I'm very happy to share with you today about our program and about my work called Living the Change, Faithful Choices for a Flourishing World. And I love this tagline, which we developed together with people of different faith, different partners about 4 years ago. And since then, truly, many people have been living the change. It's a constant, it's an ongoing effort that we do together. And I want to give you a few insights into how we do that and what women are doing with that and why women are joining in particular. So why are we living the change? First of all, it's our choice. We choose climate-friendly living because we reject the desecration of people and planet, and we want to embrace joyful lives of simplicity and solidarity. But also, climate-friendly living choices send a clear message. As we are rooted in gratitude for life and for Earth itself, our spiritual path guides us to care for creation and nature, to live simply, to avoid waste, and love our neighbors, especially the most vulnerable. And thirdly, individual behavior change alone can't save the Earth. We know that massive corporations, unwilling governments, authoritarian governments, as we see now, and greedy financial institutions stand in the way of climate justice. But if we align our lives with our faith, it is one way that we stand firm against that injustice. And I would love to share with you a few examples of people that are really inspiring and that have shared their story of change with us. So in this program, we are collecting stories of people who actually made a lifestyle change. Here are a few of them. You'll find they're from different religions, they're different gender, different ages, and different countries. And I have selected a few female voices to share with you. So when people make a lifestyle change towards climate-friendly living, what do they say? So Amy from the US says, this is resistance at the most intimate level. I'm going to resist my own body and comfort and challenge myself to a month without meat. I love that. So it's personal resistance. Ramila from the UK says, my children have been my inspiration and role models. They have educated me about air pollution, plastics, and waste. They choose not to fly, follow a vegan diet, and they walk wherever possible. What I love here is that generational aspect and that aspect of being a mother, being a parent, and being inspired by your children. We see whole movements growing from that the children demand their parents to act differently, to vote differently, and to live differently for climate justice. And Rose from the US says, I'm more appreciative of the rich bounty of foods available to us from the earth, and I'm more conscious of how my decisions can help or harm others. This experience has been very empowering. Isn't it great that making such a choice, a conscious choice towards a more simple living can be an empowering experience? And many of you have talked about this already this morning. And then Deborah from Ecuador says, I believe that big changes that take us out of our comfort zone are going to make the difference. So here again, it's not only the small changes, but it's also we need to challenge ourselves with the bigger changes, both at individual, institutional, and systemic level. When we talk about lifestyle changes in a multi-faith community that has been joining this program for 4 years now, we discovered some core principles that work across all faiths. You'll see them here. Why are people making these changes? And you've mentioned a few of them already, Sue and Ro and others. Sufficiency, gratitude, respect, compassion, duty, moderation, mindfulness, the struggle, and the commitment. So those core principles motivate people of faith for joining in this journey of living a change. Now, I think Sue spoke about it already. And Vasundhara as well. What changes can we make ourselves? So what is it that makes the most impact? We have these 3 icons here that speak about the 3 areas that we focus on, and that is indeed transport, food, and energy. Because how we travel from one place to another matters. How we eat and what we buy and what we throw away or do not throw away matters. And how we heat or cool our homes matters. That's something that we feel these nowadays in Germany. It's a political decision how you heat your home these weeks and these days. And we have invited the community of Living the Change into a time for living the change, a dedicated time, a 1-month campaign with climate-friendly lives for people of faith. And just last month or January, we have had our last 1-month campaign. It was beautiful because 620 people of faith and spirit from 33 countries joined and made their climate-friendly resolution for 1 month. It was beautiful to see that people joined either individually or as a group or as a family or as a circle of friends, and made this 1-month journey to change something together. Here are a few examples from, you can read yourself, from Becky, who's Jewish from the United States, who pledged to not only make changes in the areas of transport, diet, and energy, but also to become more politically active on climate justice, to make 52 phone calls to her representatives at the White House, which I think is great. Then we have Tanesha from Guyana, who said, I can commit to consume less energy. And we have Karen, who is more conscious about purchasing toiletries that do not use plastic. I love these examples because they show us that we can make a change. It's a kind of a resistance at the personal level, but it should not stop there. Indeed, to challenge our systems, our consumption systems, our production systems, our political systems, we need to come together. And that's why I love working with Green Faith and with this community where we bring people of different faiths together to stand up for climate justice. Thank you very much for all your wonderful presentations, and please say a prayer for peace at this special day. And I would just hope that if women were in power these days, the world would look different, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. That was a very beautiful presentation, and I think very apt for us to finish on for tonight as a roundup of presentations, because of where you are and what's needed in the world. And in our meditation shortly, that would be a very appropriate thing to do. So I really liked there how you're giving people a very doable 1 month to make a very practical and positive climate change friendly change in their life, which can be very effective as well. So thanks so much for sharing about that. So I'd like to thank everyone again, all our speakers. As we've seen today, they've got so much to share, and today's really been a snapshot of many different things that are going on. So I hope you found it interesting and inspiring to see the spirit of everyone's work. And Terry Sussmilch has been mentioned a couple of times tonight as the kind of angel of this event and helper in the background. So I'd like to invite Terry to come on, and she's been keeping an eye on the chat as we've gone through the program, and she'll share a few thoughts from there and maybe comments that you've brought up. So Terry, would you like to join us now?
I'd just like to thank everyone for your innovative approaches to supporting sustainability, your enthusiasm and your courage. It always inspires me to see women doing what they do best, and that is caring for one another, caring for the planet. It's been a real delight to have all of you together on the panel. And we all have the one thought in our mind about peace and as both Kris brought in her sunflower at the beginning and Caroline mentioned at the end how close she is to the war zone, I'm wondering whether it might be good to go straight to the meditation, and I can read comments from the chat at the end, because our combined thoughts for peace, empowerment, loving kindness, compassion need to go out now, and then we'll talk about the chat for those who are interested. Is that okay, Kris?
I think that's a lovely idea if we go to the meditation now. There are quite a few things in the chat. We can leave that there and people can read themselves if they like. We are a little pushed, well, not pushed for time, but there's some information about some of the programs coming up. But yes, for the meditation, I think it would be very appropriate now. So for this, we're going to have a guided meditation commentary led by Sister Christine Westbury from the Brahma Kumaris Centre in Melbourne. She's the coordinator of the centre in Fitzroy and a long-time meditator. And so for this, I'd invite you to put everything down. If you're holding anything, sit comfortably and make your space undistracted and focus on the thoughts and image that are shown as we give our good wishes to the planet and each other. So Christine, I'd like you to invite you to join us now.
And we can just sit and get ourselves into that, settle ourselves into a very comfortable position and just let go of anything else that maybe I need to be doing soon. So let's settle into this present moment. Just take a few breaths, just to let all of the day go. Breathing in, relaxation, and just breathing out all of the old, breathing in and breathing out. So let's absorb the fragrance of all who have spoken tonight. Just breathe in the fragrance of everything that has been spoken. And let's recollect the stories and the great work of these women in our society. It's time to hear the voices of women. It's time for women to be heard. Let there be circles of women. It's time to raise the visibility of women and their hearts. The world needs the women's voice and heart at this time to sustain and to nourish this world. We share loving kindness. We care for one another. and care for the planet. Let's share all our gentleness, our deep, deep tolerance and compassion. Let that flow all the time to help this world to change this world. Mercy. Such a merciful heart we have to give. Oh, women, the time is calling us to embrace this world with all our love and care. We are the sustainers. We are the nurturers. The sacred mother is remembered through time. Mother, oh mother, you are the support of the world. Let's stand in our grace. Let's stand in our power, our Shakti. Together, we form a circle around the world, embracing it, nurturing it. How different the world will be when we stand and become the change agents and nurturers that we are. How different. Our merciful heart, our passion to serve others and the world. Let's love and empower all. We are the sustainers. We are the nurturers. The sacred women of this world.
Thank you, Christine. That was absolutely lovely and summarised the event very beautifully, I think, from a feeling point of view. So I think now would be a good time again to thank everyone, all our speakers, Kris Schaffer, Ro Morrow, Dr. Sue Ennis, Vasundara Kanpal, and Caroline Bader, coming all the way from Germany, for coming, joining us, sharing everything. I'd also like to thank Terry, who helped put this program together, Christine for that lovely meditation commentary, Rebecca from our environment group who has helped with our technical side of things tonight, and to thank everyone who's joined us from wherever you are. And I was thinking, as we close, it would be nice if we could actually see everyone. And you could turn on your cameras. We could go to gallery view. And
Kris, I'd just like to thank you,
Terry,
for all the efforts that you've put in to make this happen. So thank you, Kris.
it's been an absolute pleasure.
I just wanted to say that on my beautiful property at Nika, I have the swift parrots come and nest, and they are such a beautiful bird that you mentioned, so rare and endangered. But if we all come together to create these sanctuaries, we can save these threatened species. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kris. Thank you.
Can I say on that? So there's a petition online. So the researchers who are doing their research work on swift parrot in Hobart, they have started a petition online. If you want, I can share the link, and it would be wonderful if everyone can sign that petition.
Thanks, Vasundhara. Welcome to put that in the chat. So I'd just like to see everyone who'd like to say hello. If you want to turn on your camera and give us a wave as we share our love with each other's faces. And thank you so much for joining us, and happy International Women's Day. And that's it for this evening. So Om Shanti is also our greeting of peace. So wherever we are and whatever happens next in our lives, may it be good for you. So thank you again, and good night, or good day, good morning. Om Shanti.